baking stacks of G's, paying your investors with cancers growing in them Cree communities. All the while the world is drowning, trading fossil fuel carbon for them life-giving trees. Man, this world is in need of a revolution. My own personal story is one of, of memories of my childhood, being with my great-grandparents out on our trap line in northern Manitoba between Puggadowagan First Nation and Lynn Lake, with no roads, with no air traffic going over our land. And I remember my great-grandmother, making bannock on our campfire. I remember my great-grandfather and my uncles pulling up our fish net. And I just remember the abundance and the wealth that the land provided us and the happiness that we had. For me, the transition into the fight for economic and environmental justice, the fight against environmental injustice, well, you could say I was born into it, and that my pathway to where I am today was predetermined, by this government's economic policies.
Youth, elders, people fighting for justice, how you doing this morning? Yeah! Welcome to the National Day of Action against the tar sands industry, against the Harper government.
The Keystone XL pipeline is a proposed project coming from TransCanada, which is one of the largest transporters of fossil fuels on the planet. They are proposing to build a 1,900-mile pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta to Port Arthur, Texas. If built, this pipeline will result in a 30% increase in tar sands extraction. It will, cross thousands and thousands of streams. It's not a question of if, but a question of when this pipeline ruptures. If we look at the Keystone number 1 pipeline infrastructure, which went live last year, there's been 13 blowouts in 12 months. And this is coming, with the same reassurances from the same voices that are pushing for the Keystone XL. There is no greater representation of the unsustainable path that this country has set upon than the Canadian tar sands. And so, as a father, as a defender of the land, I feel that we, as Canadian citizens, as First Nations, have a moral imperative to stand up and to fight to protect the sacredness of Mother Earth, to guarantee that our children and our children's children will have access to the same natural wonders and beauty. If you take a map of all of the 600 or so First Nations, all the Métis settlements and Inuit communities in this country, and you overlay that map with all of the mega hydroelectric development, all of the oil and gas development, tar sands included, and all of the mining and hydroelectric transmission lines, gas pipelines, oil pipelines, you will see that these development sites are all within 40 or 50 kilometers of one of our native communities. And so environmental racism is very much alive in Canada. We also know that this government has actively been trying to stifle the voice of First Nations on the front line of tar sands extraction, who have long believed that the cancer clusters in their communities, in places like Fort Chipewyan, for example, are directly tied to the long-term toxic bioaccumulation and exposure to contaminants coming downstream from the tar sands through the water. It's often challenging, when you're doing campaign work, to maintain that balance, to maintain that dedication, to take that time and play with my sons, to be a husband. Quite often this work takes us all over the planet. It's a big commitment, and quite often I'm away from home. and that's very hard on my family, and it's also hard on the psyche. But it's a necessary thing. We must stop the Canadian tar sands because it represents the biggest carbon bomb on the planet. Well, I tell them that Daddy's going to fight some bad guys whenever I gotta be on the road, and so to them, I think I'm Spider-Man or Batman. Let us not forget that although Canada did not go into the Iraq War, that it's tar sands oil that's powering the Iraq War. Canada is the biggest provider of oil to the United States of America. And the Trans Mountain Pipeline, owned by Kinder Morgan Pipeline Company, transports roughly 200,000 to 300,000 barrels per day to the Tacoma, Washington Strategic Naval Petroleum Refinery, which is powering up warships and warplanes on their way to the Persian Gulf. And so, again, it's interesting how things get spin doctored, but it couldn't be more further from the truth. Buying oil from Canada is not ethical.
I've been writing environmental policy and lobbying politicians for over a decade, and that's not doing anything.
Today was a success.
Say what?
We're so inspired by the over 200 people that have risked arrest today, that crossed that police line behind me and sent a clear message to Harper that the game is changing.
We're gonna take these suckers' profits, ecological debt. We're gonna make these suckers pay. Gonna take this place alright, do it for my sons. I made them that promise at birth.